Namaste, I'm Anand Narsimhan and welcome to Network 18 AB and Bev Sustainability 100 Plus Dialogues 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, if one thing this pandemic has taught us is that we need to respect our environment. We need to have clean water, we need to have hygiene and sanitation, and we need to focus our policies going forward towards securing a future which will enable us to survive, enable humanity to survive at least the next 100 years. And in that aspect, we have put together this effort that talks about sustainability and towards a better world. In this effort, we have had the launch, and then thereafter, we are also looking at and celebrating some of the champion states. One of them is Telangana, which has moved from being a performer to a front-runner state. And they have taken great strides in achieving their sustainability goals. So what more can Telangana do? And what are industries, companies, investors who are moving to the state, how are they going to contribute? Let's try and understand, put matters into perspective with a very, very august panel. And we got a lot of talking heads today, and this is going to be quite engaging. And it gives me great pleasure in introducing them and saying hello to all of them. Girish Mohan, Senior Manager, Social Investments, ITC Limited, is with us. We also have Peter Betzel, CEO and Chief Sustainability Officer, IKEA. IKEA is looking at pan-India launches. They're already there in the south, in Hyderabad. Neetu Narula, CSR Lead, Microsoft IDC, is with us. Vikas Kataria, Director, Resource Mobilization, WaterAid. We've engaged quite a lot, and we're also looking at the halfbacks. We'll talk about that too in just a bit. Vikas. S. Narsingh Rao, Principal Secretary to the Chief Minister Telangana, with us, a very, very important voice to try and tell us what the government is doing. Government of Telangana has been doing, proactively taking measures. Ishan Gupta, Regional Director, Central, East and West, South Asia, AB and Bev, is with us. Hi, Ishan. And we are hoping that Mr. K.T. Ramarao, Minister for IT Industries, Telangana will be able to also join us. Mergers and acquisitions and urban development also come under him, and he should be able to join us because he's been championing this effort. But let me start with Mr. Narsingh Rao. From a performing state, sir, to a front runner, what is it perhaps that you would say that in this entire pandemic year that Telangana has been able to do while dealing with cases in COVID-19, but also focusing on sustainability, clean water, sanitation, hygiene?
Yeah, thank you very much. And very good afternoon once again to everybody. See, on the front runner side, the 1920 in rating in the Niti Aayog index, Telangana has moved quite a bit upward on 7 to 8 goals. One is on the clean water and sanitation. As some of you would have heard, the government of Andhra Pradesh, government of Telangana has taken up a very prestigious drinking water program almost 6 years ago. We have achieved 100% villages to be covered by clean water. This is surface water. Some of the districts were suffering with fluoride, and some of the districts with acute groundwater problem. Now today we can confidently say entire 37 million population has been supplied with the safe drinking water, 100% treated and surface water. I think this is perhaps the first time in the country that entire statewide coverage has been there.
No, that's fantastic, and this is Mission Bhagiratha, isn't it? But
Yes,
you also
mission,
have
we named it Mission Bhagiratha. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, but you also have the Kaleshwaram project. Tell us about irrigation and this entire lift irrigation project. I've been reading about it. Very interesting.
So as I was saying, the
Hmm.
Telangana falls generally in the low rainfall area, and
Yeah.
with the advent of green revolution and particularly the borewell technology, as we know about 40 years ago, the huge
Hmm.
depletion in the groundwater. And
Correct.
if you see as a geographical area or the cultivable area as a unit, we have perhaps the largest number of bore wells in the tube wells in the country in terms of per square kilometer per 1,000 hectares of cultivable area. It's close to 30 lakhs, 30 lakh bore
Hmm.
wells.
Wow.
When this technology was just initial years, like early 80s, groundwater used to be between 50 to 60 feet. Today,
Hmm.
people need to go up to 400, 500 meters. And we know certainly it is simply not sustainable. Just in about 3 decades, if it has depleted to that levels, then
Hmm.
what can happen in the future, one can imagine. So keeping in view this, and also to cover more and more areas, even where the groundwater is not available, and to improve the crop productivity, government has taken up this the lifting water from both Krishna and Godavari.
Hmm.
Northern side we have Godavari River, and the
Hmm.
southern side we have Krishna River. The southern side of the state is boundary is Krishna River, and northern side is Godavari River. Unfortunately, the nature is such that the Godavari, both Godavari and Krishna, are about
Hmm.
100 between 100 meters to 500 meters below the MSL compared to the Telangana state. So there is no other
Hmm.
option but to lift water from both the rivers. Apart from
Hmm.
already whatever completed projects like Nagarjuna Sagar and Sriram Sagar are there, that they are there at the lift
Hmm.
irrigation
Hmm.
gives it is going to irrigate 40 lakh acres of land. Now this
Wow.
is where, and 15 lakh will be irrigated by the what we call Palamur Rangareddy lift irrigation. It's just in the in progress, whereas Kaleshwaram is more or less completed. Our idea is that it improves the productivity. It also restores the groundwater, and there will be no more further depletion of groundwater in northern districts, about 6 districts of Telangana
Hmm.
state.
Hmm. Interestingly, some of the old river systems, the canal systems, and also lakes and ponds, there is also a need to revive those. And I think the Telangana government is doing that too. But Narsingh Rauji, I'll circle back to you in just a bit. Let's just get some comments from some of our other panelists also. I'm going to go across to Girish Mohan. You, with ITC, have been doing something very interesting in that region. There is a certain level of trying to also work with bringing up the forests, the timber, the wood, and also in terms of bamboo. Tell us about this project. I've read about this. There is a huge amount of work that's been done. You worked or engaged with the Adivasis and the tribals also in that region to try and create not just sustainability at various levels, but also improve lives. I can't hear you, Girish. I think you'll have to unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead now. Yeah.
Yeah. So in ITC, we initiated our social investment program with a focus on water stewardship. We started around 2001, and today we work in 14 states. Telangana happens to be one of a state where we have a major projects on water and other livelihood. So as agriculture happens to be major source of livelihood, we decided that we'll focus on water as one component, and plus also work on the other components of livelihood which you are talking about, like social forestry.
Hmm.
So the approach we have taken is, is including all the stakeholder together, and rather complementing the effort government is doing. For example, Telangana has this unique mission Kakatiya, where
Yeah.
Mission Kakatiya was working on desilting tank. We decided that we will supplement their program by catchment of these tanks, stabilizing these catchments through various soil and water conservation initiatives, and also tree planting. So this tree planting has a twin benefit. Tree planting to agroforestry, one helps to have an additional livelihood source for communities. It also builds their resilience against climate change, because trees are generally, hardy. They will withstand with drought and flood. In total, this is also supplements to the tank catchment, which reduces the siltation in the tank and also increases the life of these tanks. So we have a large water and social forestry project, which today covers 4 districts of Telangana. And every year now, we have one ecosystem where this ecosystem itself takes care of this project. Now we don't have to really push things much, but there are many players in this ecosystem. Like government is one player, and there are many players which we brought together and build this ecosystem, which is helping, for livelihoods of many people, millions of people in Telangana.
True, but how has it been working through this pandemic? Have you been able to continue your programs? How have you been able to help people? And how many is there? Can you give us numbers in terms of acreage of forests that you've been able to restore, lives that you've been able to help improve?
Yes. So what we did in this pandemic period, we decided that we will, again work with the government and focus on actualizing the government schemes. As you know, government of India and many state government, especially Telangana government, they were focusing on many schemes like MGNREGS, where they were trying to, create some kind of livelihood for the people who have migrated from the cities. So we decided with our existing in that region, we will help government, we will work with the communities, create large scale awareness on COVID precautions, and identify the kind of work which not only help them to generate a livelihood in a shorter period, but also these become a productive asset for coming periods, and also help them to have additional water, to have agriculture in coming season. Coming to social forest, specifically what we did is we have a large base in these areas. We have created farmer groups. These are called Moneycontrol Sanghas. So we digitized all these Moneycontrol Sanghas and started using a digital simple WhatsApp technology, and transmitting all the knowledge, all the possible information regarding plantation. As I said, our focus is always on creating ecosystem and linking these players of ecosystem. So we started connecting nursery people with the farmers and farmers with the scheme, so that the loop is completed. And even if we are not able to move so freely in the field, but we were able to connect these players and initiate this program the way we were doing in the years.
No, absolutely fantastic. And that brings me to Peter Betzel. You're in the business where when I say IKEA, you think wood. And here you have the challenge to be, talk about sustainability. So you are the CEO and you're also the Chief Sustainability Officer. So tell me, how does this work, this business model work, Peter? Thank you for joining us first up. Yeah.
No, I thank you for inviting me. I think that is one of our DNAs when we talk about. I think let me start on that note to say, I think our planet is not just a place; it's our home for the many people living on that planet, and also when it comes to India. And if we would like to continue to live on the planet and on that home, I think we need to change our habits, or most of our habits for the future. Is the way we live, the way we produce, the way we consume, the way we work, the way we travel, and that we can continue to live in the limit and the boundary of our planet, which we're not to today. I think we see 3 major risks as a company. They also apply for India. I think the first one is unsustainable consumption of all of our resources. They go beyond the boundary of our planet. We are using 2 times our planet resources or even more, and that includes also water, but we are talking today, it goes beyond all the resources. Number 2 is the global warming and the climate change, which is impacting not only the world, but also India. And number 3 is a growing inequality and intolerance in the world. And we all see that 3 parts have been even accelerated, you can say, due to the COVID. And then it's good that to say, when I say it comes from our heart and it comes from what we are talking about, we are coming with a vision. This is creating a better, more healthier, more sustainable, and more fair and equal life for the many people around the world, and especially in India. And we also would like to demystify a little bit, is there something as a company, is it a conflict between acting as a purpose-driven, responsible company and doing business? Is there conflict? Or is it good business to do good business. And we have a strong belief that we can grow and have a positive impact on people, society, and the environment, and therefore on our home and our planet. So that means also that with the collaboration, what we can do a lot with the governments, with the NGOs, and especially with all our consumers around the world. We know that 90% of all the world population, for example, they want to live a more sustainable life, but only maybe 40% know how to do it. So what are the actions what they can do? So with that, we have been giving ourselves 3 major goals for us in IKEA. And this applies also for India. The first one is we would like to inspire and enable more than 1 billion people around the world and some 100 million people in India to live a more sustainable and more healthy life. Because I think with a big population, with a small means what people can do, the impact can be big and will be big in that way. So, for example, for IKEA, that means products which are helping you for water saving, energy saving, waste segregation. And we also believe that the many people have a big impact, not only the big companies, but the many people. The second one, we want to become climate positive until 2030. That means we would like to have a positive carbon footprint. That's a real challenge for us in the future, but we would like to step into that one. That has to do with a lot of investment in renewable energy. I think it's good to announce that at the moment we are producing more renewable energy around the world than what we are using, but there's more to go in that way. And we would like to become a circular company with our suppliers and together with our consumers to have really regenerate resources and not wasting the resources. Number 2. And number 3, we also would like to create and have a positive impact on fair, inclusive social life for the many people around where we're operating. So this is fantastic, these 3 parts. When it comes to India and Telangana, I think it's fantastic, this initiative, because what I said, maybe with all the challenges, we are committed to all the 3 goals also for India, because we also believe that India can be on the forefront for the world and showing the way, because there's a big need in India to move the 3 topics I was mentioning, but there's also a big opportunity and also a big innovation for India. And let me mention one part as a company, as an individual. India is the youngest country in the world, what we have. And I think sitting here having a responsibility for a planet which is worthwhile to live in for our young generation coming after me. So that is something which is also driving us. When it comes to India, let's take it from India, from Telangana IKEA perspective. All our buildings we're operating in India are today sustainable, and they're certified silver or gold from an LED perspective. So that is a minimum standard. All our own buildings have solar panels on its top. So for example, in Hyderabad, in Telangana, we are producing almost 18% of our energy is produced by ourselves. But on the other hand, we also need to buy the missing 85%. And here there could something where we could need some help, can be more access and the framework for more renewable energy and green energy in that part. We also would like to invest in renewable energy. So we have been building wind farms and solar parks around the world. That would also help if you have a sustainable, you would have a legal framework, make it attractive for a company to invest in renewable energy. That is one part. All our stores, they have circular hubs implemented. So we are reusing, recycling all products which are used in the store or coming back from our consumers. We have removed all single-use plastic. We have been delivered 30,000 parcels in 100% sustainable packaging. We have all our food sourced locally with farmers, and we are encouraging them to source and to grow and to harvest in a responsible manner. We have 20% of all our last mile deliveries on EV, and we will introduce solar panels for consumers in India. When it comes to water, I think what we need to learn, we need to save and recycle and reuse our water globally on the planet, but also in India. That is something. We would like to become water positive also by 2030, maybe even earlier in that way. So all our units are with 0 discharge when it comes to water and when it comes to waste. All our units have rainwater harvesting systems. So we have a big container growing in the Hyderabad store where all the water and the rainwater goes in there, which is then used for landscaping and for cooling facilities, or used for toilet and other parts in our store. We have the better coordination initiative. I don't know if that is popular to know. And then India is a big producer when it comes to cotton and textile. And it's also textile, the biggest country what we're exporting when it comes to that. But the Better Cotton Initiative is enabling farmers in growing and harvesting to use much less water and to do it in a fair, equal way. That has a big impact because we are a user of textile around the world and from cotton around the world. So that has a big impact when we look on that part. When we talk about products, I talk about involving the many people in India, the consumers. It's about selling products which are enabling saving energy and saving water and helping them to segregate waste. So we have a lot of all our tubs, for example, all tubs we are selling having the water saving, which helps you with the same pressure up to 90% water saving in the day-to-day use. And that is coming back. We also have been introducing the Better Living app. I don't know if you have downloaded that in India and around the world. So that is a fantastic initiative with the Living app that shows small actions and small means what you can do as a consumer and as a co-worker to save for the energy. So we have been with energy saving, we have been saving more than 40,000 kilograms of CO2 emissions. Our consumers have been doing that. We have been saving 1.4 million liters of water using that app. It equals to 1.9 lakh use of consumption for the many people of fresh water. And then we have been segregating 10,000 kilograms of waste. And in Telangana, 20,000 people have been downloading and using that app, and that is gives a lot of signals. That's not only from a company perspective, but also from a consumer perspective. We as a company can enable help beside and beyond other things what we are doing. So that is a very exciting part.
No, that's
fair
fantastic.
and inclusive. I don't need to mention that.
True, absolutely.
I think we talk about fair and
you know what? The fact of the matter is, I think that's one of the reasons why you don't have too many stores all across the country. It's because you have put such high benchmarks in terms of what you will be able to contribute towards society, that you also are limiting your footprint in terms of how many places that you operate on. And it's just fantastic. It's a great template for everybody else to follow. And I think a lot of companies are also following it along with IKEA. But one of the aspects that comes into play is technology. Now, we've got Neetu Narula from Microsoft, and Microsoft has been working with farmers very, very actively. They've been taking technology in such a way that they're able to take sustainability on ground. For helping farmers with drip irrigation is one of the aspects which I think that Microsoft has been doing. But Neetu, if you can hear me.
I'm losing your voice a bit, but yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us what you've been able to do in Telangana and also at large across India in terms of helping farmers and helping people on ground achieve their sustainability goals? And internally also, I think Microsoft has also adopted a lot of the SDGs.
Saran, that's a right, I think, framing for me, because I would like to speak in both the terms. One is, how are we getting our house in order first, and then talk about how we're trying to work with the community and people around us.
Sure.
So when I talk about our house in order, Microsoft all up, I mean, worldwide has a commitment of getting carbon neutral by 2030 and water positive by 2030. And when there's an all up commitment, it's going all the way, even in Telangana. And the biggest office for Microsoft is in Hyderabad. Here, the biggest development center is in Hyderabad, with around 10,000 employees at the office here. So this place here, we are doing, we even with that commitment, we are working in 4 different levels. One is about water, how are we recycling and doing things for water, waste management, what are we doing with waste management, and everything that we are doing, let's say we are trying to do an integrated UPS, we're measuring the carbon footprint with everything, like 30 metric tons saved with the UPS integration, 459 metric tons saved with putting, these solar panels. And we're doing it in a very, like we do our product development, doing in a very metric driven manner. The sustainability work also that's happening. So we're working in 4 buckets in our own house. So one is water management, waste management, energy management, and ecosystems. So a lot of things which Peter was speaking, and I was like, okay, they also have almost the same thing about 2030 carbon neutrality commitment. So multiple things are happening there in that bigger bucket, which involves, you're talking about safe water, drinking water. We're also trying air to water harvesting within that. That's an experiment that's going on. And we're expecting 15% of our drinking water we'll be able to get with that, the air to water harvesting. Of course, the central RO plants, eliminating plastics. We have committed that we'll be true zero waste certified by 2026. So which means 90% of our waste will not go to landfill. That's going on, and of course there's a lot of thing going on about creating green energy for our own consumption, and so that's all about getting the internal house in order.
Correct.
And then comes how are we working with the communities. So as a overall CSR commitment, at least from the Hyderabad office, I can say we are committed to working more on the local states and the cities we are working in, so that we get our community in, we work with our communities first. So the irrigation, the farmer project that you are mentioning about, that was a lot about how we can use technology in technology and artificial intelligence, right?
Yes.
In
Yes.
doing various things about, what's the right time to put the seeds, what's the right time when the things are ready, and with the IoT, the Internet of Devices and the technology we have using artificial intelligence, there's a lot more farmers can do, a lot more intelligence that farmer can get at one place. So there is work happening on that front. There's a long way to go. What all we can do on that particular site, but yeah, that's going on how we can leverage our technology. We are also working in a non-agricultural side. If I go, what we are doing is we are working across 4 different pillars in terms of what is the skilling pillar. So Microsoft all up have a skilling target of digital skilling target of 25 million people skilled by the end of the next year. And that is with the COVID, there's a lot of unemployment that has come into picture, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have lost their jobs. So there's a big commitment around providing digital skills. And, as part of CSR, we want to give what we know, what to do best. So we are saying that's a big thing that's going on the skilling side. There's a big effort going on empowerment and inclusion side. And even in Telangana, so we are working with various different NGOs on that side on how we bring people to mainstream, whether it's people with disabilities, whether it's marginalized section of women, whether it's blindness, deaf and blindness children. So a lot of inclusion and empowerment efforts are going on that side. And the third is the ecosystem. The ecosystem part is where we are still evaluating. One of the projects I'm currently evaluating is on reviving the Gachibowli well. So Gachibowli is named after a step well, supposedly.
Yeah.
So I'm working with Kalpana Ramesh from Sahi to see if we could, take up that revival project. And we are also in parallel evaluating, working with the government on the Harta Haram project to see, what we could do in terms of adopting forest bills. We have committed to working. We are working with CRPF on 20,000 tree plantations. But those are the kind of things we're working at the community level on what we could do. And I'm here in the forum to learn more and see more opportunities to engage with the government and become, and CSR also becoming a community of these CSR and government, coming together and creating a deeper impact for our community around.
True. I think one of the places where AI can play a very big role as far as Gachibowli is concerned, because I have a sporting background and I love sports. So Gachibowli is a huge sports complex, and one of the aspects is AstroTurf for hockey. So there was a long time back when this was built. They had a groundwater issue, so they had to dig a huge, big borewell, and the AstroTurf needs to be watered continuously. So every time they would water it, they would lose a certain amount of water for water vapor, because it would escape. Then they would be able to trap this water and then be able to use it again. And this is the same thing with cricket. So nowadays, of course, technology has come into play, but everywhere, it plays a key role in terms of not just our carbon footprint, but also water footprint. Another thing, and before I go back to Mr. Narsingh Rao, I'll bring in Ishank and Vikas Kataria also, because this pandemic has taught us one thing: you can depend on technology. Like if we can have a conversation on sustainability dialogue from remote locations, and with majority of the companies, so 84%, I think a local circle survey now says 84% of the companies want to go back to continue with work from home. That will also perhaps help reduce our carbon footprint. It will bring down capital costs for companies, but also overall bring down the carbon footprint. In Telangana, what they've done is phenomenal to jump from some about 50% to about 80% plus in terms of providing clean water. But perhaps the biggest challenge is not even in urban Telangana, it's rural Telangana. Agriculture is the biggest challenge, isn't it? Because that's the biggest guzzler, groundwater, the Kakatiya project, and more has to be done.
Well, Anand, so thank you very much for inviting me to the panel, and I'm quite enlightened by the other discussions, by the other panelists as well. So thanks for your question. I think before I just answer that question, I just want to step back and draw the line where our viewers could understand that where we are coming from. Just have a look at it. That from a global perspective, India hosts almost around 17% of the global population, and we have only 4% of natural water resources available to us. Yes, you distribute it amongst different states. We have different types of state. We have widespread geography. On one side we have sea line, on another side we have snow line. On one hand we have the desert side. On another hand we have the rocky lands. So you can imagine there are very different types of challenges our country faces it across. The second line to this is that we've got very high dependence on groundwater extraction. We have 80% almost as a country we draw for all our water needs from the groundwater itself. And if we put two next countries globally which extract highest water, which is the China and the US, which are no smaller geographies or democracies by any standard compared to India, they draw lesser than all put together what India draws alone. So that's the kind of a challenge we are up against. And on top of it, we have a huge population. To look at different states. For example, we're talking about Telangana. We've got almost 37 million people living in Telangana alone. Now, just put a context to this that if the water availability is not there, just I remember that around a year and a half ago there was a massive water stress at even Hyderabad per se. They had to withdraw water from a far off Nagarjuna Dam just to supply it to the citizens of Hyderabad in that case. Now, in this context, when we talk about water availability, what I would like to represent is that while we talk about people who are privileged, most of us who talk about water are privileged. Look at the last mile, they get left out. Now, there's a data from the government itself, which is called as Composite Water Management Index, which itself suggests that almost 70 to 75% of the Indian households do not have water availability at their premise. They have to necessarily go out. And then on top of it, we have issues of water quality. Let's say, for example, in Telangana alone, 7 districts out of 33 districts are affected with fluoride contamination. Now, if we just look at, the problem or the question which you posed to me, Anand, are we going to solve this equation, merely by looking at the urban water aspect itself, or are we going to solve this issue only by, what COVID has taught us that, what people working from home certainly has impacted the carbon footprint. It has certainly gone down for sure, but is it enough to crack the code? That's the question we should be asking. And you rightly pointed out that when we look at the agricultural water aspect. Now, while we may say that our agriculture consumes almost to the tune of 85 to 90% of our water per se, but we should not undermine this aspect that most of our industries are dependent on agriculture in some way or the other.
Yes.
Whether we call it direct footprint or indirect footprint. And when we use indirect footprint, the technology companies like even Microsoft or Google, they're also dependent on water in some way because that's the indirect footprint of water in that case.
Correct.
So when we correct ourselves, in the backdrop of it, we also need to think about what are we contributing to the most vulnerable and marginalized who are there on the ground. Who we simply say that most of our population, roughly around 70%, lives in the rural belts. How do we address the water access to them? What are the things we can do differently, both from a multi-stakeholder perspective, whether it is private sector, which has been there, or the government as a stakeholder, or the non-governmental organizations, quite like WaterAid, what we represent. So how can we come together, and crack this code? And certainly the fourth pillar of democracy, which is media, how you can also play a role in creating the awareness. Yeah. Now, I will close my comments to your first question simply by telling if there is any third world war which is going to happen, it's going to happen around water. It's scarce. We all keep on we keep on saying that water is everywhere. But is it so? Is it available to us? 70% of Earth is constituting of water alone. But is it available? No, only 1.5% of the global water is available for drinking water purposes per se. So is it fair for us, as citizens? I'm also appealing to all the viewers as well. Is it sensible for us to really go around and splurge water? Is it sensible for us to really go and
And
see aspects which are critical?
I agree with you. I
Sorry,
agree with you, and no, not at all. Please. And the fact is that that's the reason why the CCP and the PLA sat on occupied Tibet way back in the 1950s, because Tibet is the source for water across this entire region. So, be it India,
indeed.
Pakistan, on the other side towards Bhutan, Bangladesh, or even China and Myanmar and Vietnam. So, it all originates from Tibet. That's the table, and that's where the source of all the big rivers is and the origins are. So that's another story. But they also realize that the fight is going to be about water. But in India, the larger aspect is that we do receive 96% of our water through rains. And that means that it's not that we don't get enough water, it's just that we don't hold the water back. And that brings back to reviving ponds, reviving our systems, especially in the rural agricultural systems from about 1,000, 2,000 years ago. The Cholas, Pallavas across this entire region of Karnataka, today's Karnataka, and today's Telangana and Andhra Pradesh have built river systems. They have built canals. They also built ponds at critical locations so that water will be held back and water will be retained. But those systems have been lost across Chennai. If you look at the city of Chennai itself, Chennai has got a myriad of canals which have all been encroached and they've all been forgotten. Now, had those canals been there, then we wouldn't have seen the Chennai floods which happened. Ishan, thank you for your patience. The point is, you are in the business, and I keep asking everybody from AB and Bev, you're in the business of making barley water. So barley and water are two key components. Then how are you going to practice sustainability when you're in the business of making barley water? So what is it that you guys have done in Telangana?
Right. No, on that note, firstly, thank you for having me. That's a great question. But before answering that particular question, let me talk a little bit more about AB and Bev, right?
Yeah.
While we are in the business of making barley water, as you said, we believe our mission is to bring people together for a better world, right? So for us, sustainability is not just a function, right? It's part and parcel of how we do business. And with that, we've actually aligned ourselves very closely with the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And within that, we have 4 broad pillars that we are working on. They're smart agriculture, climate action, circular packaging, but most importantly for today, the water stewardship goal, right? And in that, what we are striving to do, our goal is very straightforward. By 2025, 100% of our high stress communities need to have a measurable improvement in water availability and quality, right? And with that, how we approach this problem is with a community first approach. I will come to Telangana in a bit, but let me just talk a little bit about how we think about this problem, right? There are 2 aspects to this problem. One is a little bit on the technology side, where we follow a lot of principles in our breweries. Like you said, our breweries are the most important part of our business.
Yeah.
And the first principle that we follow there, which is very, very critical, is the 3R principle, as we call it, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle, right? We're trying to minimize the consumption of water that we have, and we are also trying to maximize the reuse and the recyclability of the water that we use at our breweries. Also, we've been in the zero liquid discharge model for the last 10 to 12 years, even before it was sort of the norm for the industry. We've sort of led the industry in that way to sort of get to a place where we can start with the zero liquid discharge models. Now, coming to Telangana in particular, right? Telangana is very important and very close to us also, because I don't know if all of you know this, Budweiser was actually first launched in Crown Breweries, which are in Sangareddy district of Telangana. So for us, Telangana is literally our home, right, in India in many ways. And that brings me to this angle of community, right? We have what we like to do is we use local wisdom along with what we've learned from our global best practices and also the scientific knowledge that we have at our disposal. So in terms of local wisdom, right, we partner a lot with local players who understand the local dynamics, including the Gram Panchayats or NGOs like ICRISAT or Let's Endorse, right? Now, coming to some tangible outputs, right? All of this is a lot of structure. Now, let's talk about some of the tangible work that we've done in the state of Telangana in the last 10 years or so, right? You've been talking about harvesting, right? 96% of the water we receive is through harvesting, and Mission Kakatiya is also about building those structures, right? So we've actually built around 450 odd structures across 13 villages in Telangana, which has led to a catchment area of about 1.9 lakh kiloliters, which is almost 2 million liters of water annually, which can be harvested through these structures, right? This gets covered over an area of nearly 10,000 hectares and directly impacts, I'm not even talking about indirect impact, directly impacts about 35 to 40,000 people on a regular basis. Another sort of impact of this activity has been that the ground water levels that Mr. Rao was alluding to earlier, we've actually helped improve within the Sangareddy district area along these 13 villages, actually improve the groundwater levels by 1.4 meters. And that is actual measurable output of some of the work that we've done. Coming to some of the comments that were made on drinking water, right? We've starting 2018, I think. Yes, 2018. We've started installing RO plants, right, in villages across Telangana. We started with 2 RO plants in 2 villages in 2018, and we are installing 2 more right now. What this does is it provides high quality drinking water at near very, very low cost and in a sustainable manner, working with the local gram panchayats to these villages. So we are trying our best to make sure that we keep the community at the forefront of the measures that we do in order to make sure that not only us, but also the communities around us thrive and flourish for the next 100 years and beyond.
Okay, that's fantastic. So I've got another 5 minutes here, so I'm going to circle back to everybody and ask all of you one by one. How is 4 or 5 things that we need to do? Let me go back to Narsingh Raoji. For you, what are the targets that you have set? There are all these SDG goals that are there, SDGs which are there for 2030. That we're talking about being carbon neutral, water positive, so the carbon footprint, water footprint. But for you as Chief Secretary or Principal Secretary to the Chief Minister, 4 or 5 things which you think you want to do over the course of the next 4-5 years.
Yeah, some of the aspects like the Mission Kakatiya, Girish has mentioned. One area I did not mention at that time was, as you said, the Pallavas and Cholas time. Here in the current state of Telangana region, the Kakatiyas during 12th, 13th century have built, you'll be surprised, about 50,000 irrigation tanks. Spread uniformly all over the places. Again, for various reasons, they were not managed as well as they should have been managed. And the government of Telangana has taken up this as a prestigious project called Mission Kakatiya. This is essentially repairing and restoring and strengthening the tanks. We have done about 30,000 so far, and the balance are in the process. One of the comments you mentioned, rather queries you made, was what have we done in the pandemic, this period, improving the livelihoods. Anand, I would like to say, we have provided 40% of the additional employment to the people during the pandemic under the National Rural Employment Guarantee Program compared to any other year, about 13 crore person days against 8 to 9 crores which usual year, because during the lockdown etc. the people have moved back to their villages. The second area again I would like to emphasize here is some of Girish mentioned about this is Harita Haram. Now we have taken a very prestigious program called Harita Haram again across the state, both rejuvenating and improving the reserve forest and also covering the outside the forest area. The number I would like to mention, in the last 6 years, we have done 216 crore plants, both the saplings, both in the forest and outside the forest. Now, the 4 areas, earlier we mentioned about the Mission Bhagirath on the drinking water, and the Kaleshwaram and Palamur lift irrigations for the, supplementing and eventually replacing the groundwater exploitation in the years to come, and the Mission Kakatiya and the Harita Haram. One point I would like to mention here is that, mind you, these were conceived and initiated a couple of years even before the SDGs were formulated by the United Nations. This started right in 2014. Now, our endeavor is to intensify this, make it a people-centric program, make the entire 37 million population to be part of this exercise, part of this mission on the conservation of the natural resources. Also, efficiently utilizing the natural resources so that the degradation doesn't take place in the years to come.
No, absolutely fantastic. I have paucity of time, so I'm just going to go across to Peter. Peter, quickly, if you could tell us, IKEA, 4 or 5 things that it plans to do, especially with India and in Telangana. I know you've put a lot of things in process, but that you would like to achieve.
Yeah, what I said before, it's we would like to take big steps when it comes to circular IKEA and saving resources. So that is something which is very, very important for us when it comes to product, both from a product development, all aspects have to go to sustainability also. And when it comes to the use and the reuse and the use of recycled material, renewable material, all that kind of part, that will be a huge topic for us. Number 2 is connected to what we have been saying before. Water is very important, but it's part of saving resources. So I would also encourage, I think there are a lot of topics that we can take together. I think you also see a lot of engaged companies and government, NGOs around that. I would encourage ourselves also to maybe increase the collaboration and bring the topics on the table, increase the collaboration, who's doing what, and how can we support each other. That would be number 2. And then if you talk about number 3, I think there's something where we are very eager of is also the renewable energy part. I think that is something which India has to be actually step into.
Right.
And renewable energy, we also here would like to invest in building photovoltaic parks and wind energies. But I think we need to come around the table to say what is the framework, the legal framework, and the other parts which need to be come to that. That is the 3rd part. The 4th part is continue our equal and gender equality agenda. So to be a good example and step up for that. Yeah. And then again, I would like to mention, bring consumers and bring the population into that, because I think there's a lot believe in that what we can do together. It's about the young people for their world, for the future. I think these are the 5 things. What we there are more things to do, but I think we make it as a priority.
Absolutely fantastic. And a final word, Ishank. I'm sorry, Girish and Neetuji and Vikas. I will not be able to come across to you. I have paucity of time. I'm just going to quickly come back to Ishank and say, Bud, how are we going to get whiter?
No, that's a great question, Anand. I'm going to stick to the same sort of set of 4 things that we're going to do. Number 1, right? We are going to continue with the methodology of being community first, right? We really need to use the local wisdom, what we understand from through our conversations with the Gram Panchayats, the people in the villages, to understand what is it that is practical, logical, and has direct impact to their lives. And we bring in the scientific knowledge to really push through the agenda around rainwater harvesting, improving the groundwater levels, and also, most importantly, providing potable drinking water, right? RO plants, etc., to all the relevant stakeholders in those areas. The second aspect is working very closely with the government, right? I'm very, very happy to hear some of the things Mr. Rao mentioned. And like he mentioned, while we've put together our dream for 2025 in 2018, the work that we've done in Telangana actually started back in 2008, 2009, and 10, right? So for us, this has been a long journey and is going to be a continuous improvement process. And to do that, we are going to use what we call plan, do, check, and act, right? A framework that we use internally is a framework that we're going to apply to this sort of process and make sure that there is continuous improvement in our works with the government. And the last bit is the partnerships part, right? Partnering with the government, partnering with ICRISAT, partnering with Let's Endorse, and partnering with any and everyone who is interested in improving the quality and quantity of water in the state of Telangana.
No, absolutely fantastic. And thank you very much. I have to wind this up at this point in time. But here is my humble request to both the government and also to all of you who represent different aspects of the corporate world. Please start thinking at block level. Please start thinking that you are able to take industry, engagement, employment to districts or blocks so that you are able to reduce the migration that we are seeing. It is when people leave their villages, their own ecosystems, that those ecosystems start getting neglected. And it starts putting pressure like needle pin pricks on the urban areas. So if you are able to take your business down to the block levels, if the governments can also look at policy formation at block level, so you have block level economics and you're sustaining people and keeping people where they are or where they are born, and they're not forced to move out of that place, and you keep that interesting, automatically the pressures on our resources will also reduce. That and a lot of the systems which were put in place in the past will start getting revived, because people will start looking at living where they are rather than moving out of where they have been. That's my request. Thank you all. It's been a fantastic discussion, and congratulations to the government of Telangana also for doing such fantastic work. We're going to just quickly wind up or end this endeavor in this session of the Sustainability Dialogues 100 Plus 2021 with a short video on water stewardship in Telangana. I thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Approach where we are looking at, okay, how can we ensure water efficiency within our brewery when it comes to the usage of water, and also looking at how we can give back more to the community and the ecosystem in which we are working.
The intention to create customized solutions to every community's water problems gave rise to AB InBev's Water Stewardship Program in partnership with changemakers like Let's Endorse, Force and ICRISAT. The program aims to ensure water access and quality for both the communities and breweries.
We enter the village, we interact with the community, we try to understand their problems.
The objective of this initiative was to ensure that we collect the rainwater and it is recharged into the ground, and even the wastewater in some ways, in certain cases, even the wastewater is treated so that it can be reused for agricultural purpose.
Depending on the topography, the structure and the drainage over there and the soil over there, we decide what kind of structure needs to be constructed.
We have constructed more than 450 structures from 2011 when we started. With the help of this water availability, now farmers are also able to take second crop in post-rainy season.
Through integrated watershed development approach, AB InBev along with its partners not only work towards restoring the ecological balance by conserving and developing degraded natural resources, but also supports the communities by introducing diverse agro-based activities to help provide sustainable livelihoods. In its own breweries, AB InBev has introduced significant water efficiency practices.
With AB, I dream of impacting the millions and millions of lives with positive water quality and quantity. In line with this, we have been working on the 3 principles of reuse, reduce and recycle of water.
Zero liquid discharge is one of the key initiatives which is linked to the water stewardship, where it's help in the reuse and clarification of the water.
So we have our own recycle water treatment plant. From there we can use the recycled water wherever it is required.
The biggest win was us installing the zero liquid discharge plants, which gave us a top level efficiency. It was an industry benchmark, and that's where our treatment facility in a lot of our plants were even crossing the compliance requirements in a lot of areas.
An integrated approach to water stewardship also involved generating drinking water access for the communities.
This is a doctor water plant. It's a 6 days purification of water. It is useful to the public. On average 250 cans per day is given to the community.
I would say the biggest win with these water units for the community also is that they get that drinking water at probably 10 times less the cost, which they would find in an open market. So it's not just quality drinking water made available to them. It's not just a self-sustaining unit which is made, but it's also a unit which gives water at a very subsidized rate.
We look at sustainability not just as one other initiative in the company, but it is our business. And we believe that any and every challenge that water and all areas related to water scarcity, availability and access to clean water should be addressed by us through these partnerships that we look at creating.